Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the U School Podcast. I'm here with a friend and neighbor, Lauren DeCaprio, who is, well, you tell me who you are, Lauren.
Oh gosh, what?
The good, the bad, there's no ugly. The good and the bad.
Awesome.
Who are you?
Well, I'm all kinds of things, I think. I'm a mom. A mom of two boys, 10 and 11. I'm a graphic designer by trade. And I am a ceramics teacher at the high school level at Del Norte High School. And so I teach, and I find myself helping in almost every place in my world. So
Yeah. It seems like everywhere I go, you're there. Yeah. And probably vice versa. And I don't know a bunch of your like kind of origin story, especially for teaching education. Was that the plan? I mean, being a trained graphic designer, did you have a different career before school?
So I think I always said growing up, like in another life, I'd be a teacher. Two of my three sisters are teachers. I watched them go through the process. I was a fine arts major at San Diego State with an emphasis in graphic design. So sort of the plan was always to do something creative. I thought maybe I'd be a chef. I thought I would be a makeup artist for crazy special effects Hollywood movies. I was always kind of doing something sort of crafty and creative. So I did go into graphic design. I was a graphic designer for about 10 years. I own my own company and I do all kinds of things, really anything that I find myself into. Restaurant, I worked in restaurants forever. So I would do a lot of like mailers, collateral, menu design, mural work, just kind of anything that sort of found its way to me. I do a lot of special event design, so like invitations and event stationery and things like that. And I was sort of at this crossroads where I was working at restaurants, and I had my two boys, and so I was working nights, and I just kind of kept feeling a calling for the classroom. And I called one of my sisters and I said, I don't know, I was already kind of well into my 30s, and I thought, can I still do that? Like, is it okay to change now? And I had nothing but support from my family and my friend group. And so I just walked into a credentialing office and I just said, when can I start? And I started the next week. And it was all pretty fast from there. I found myself in a local high school in the classroom setting in a ceramics room. I had some experience with pottery just throughout my education, but it was never really initially a passion. I just thought,
so it was like the job opening was ceramics, and you're like, I can figure that out.
Yeah,
I can do that.
I'm like, let's go. I mean, it's like one of the oldest art forms of all time. So I was like, we could do this. Okay, cool. And I've since found just such a love for it from like what it can offer the students and just watching that process. It's kind of a neat combination with part of my work being totally technology driven and then the other part being almost zero technology. So it's kind of cool to have both. So now I've been teaching for 7 years right up the street, and I really can't imagine a better balance for sort of both sides of my brain.
Well, as you've gotten to know U School, we care about kids and helping them figure out life and particularly how to build a meaningful life. And we've developed these series of questions that we think if a kid can answer these questions clearly and confidently, they'll have the foundation for a meaningful life. And the one I want to talk to you about is probably the one that has been challenged the most over the years. Challenged in that sense that people would say it's not essential. It's not absolute necessity for someone to live life well. and I just continue to fight it. And so I'm hoping to get some material from you to be able to argue this. And the question is, you can ask it in a variety of ways, but the question essentially is, what's beautiful to you? What do you find to be beautiful? And embedded in that question is the assumption that you do find things beautiful, obviously. And by asking the question, there's an implication that that's important, that that's valuable. So, that's the big context. But I want to go back a little bit in your story. You've got a couple sisters who are in education, but where does the creative part come from? And I know that art and beauty aren't, that's almost too easy to say. Those are, those are the same. But where does that come from for you? Were you from an artist family? Was that cultivated in you early on?
It's funny, this conversation just came up recently with my sisters, but I definitely get it from both my parents, mostly my mom. My mom was a very crafty individual. She kind of converted like half of our garage into what I like to call like a Michael's craft store. It just
really?
was like glitter exploded everywhere, and there was puffy paints and ribbons, and she was an amazing seamstress, and she had a really creative and crafty brain. She was always making our Halloween costumes and prom dresses and crazy Easter bonnets, and the glue gun was like her best friend. And so it was always part of my life to just be around all things arts and crafts. In high school, my sister got into photography. She converted part of our garage into a dark room. Wow. I had an airbrush. She was taking airbrush classes with me at one point when I was in like 7th grade. She just was like all in and supportive. My dad is a little bit more, he has more strengths in like drawing. He has amazing penmanship. He has a beautiful hand as well. So I do think it's a little bit of both. But it was definitely something that my sisters and I all grew up with, this sort of push, I think, to just constantly just go in the craft room and see where it took you. So I do think that it was just sort of natural that I would find my way into something creative.
Yeah. So teaching ceramics, I actually would have no clue what the standards are, what the academic standards are for ceramics. And I'm curious, one, what are they? And then two, how do you work through those and what are you trying to teach students when it comes to being creative and beauty, all that stuff?
Sure. I think that such an amazing part of a ceramic studio, and one that I think people don't totally appreciate, and maybe I didn't either until I sort of started to really look at it, was just how much math and science exists in a ceramics classroom. I mean, it's all math and science at a certain point. And there's, change of matter, there's, contraction and expansion and proportions. And I mean, it's just at a certain point, chemicals and chemical change and heating and cooling and breaking. And I mean, it's just pretty wild. And so I think what's super special about it is, even though, yes, there's absolutely something beautiful that can be made, something that I emphasize and want the students to really appreciate, and what I find beautiful, gosh, so much more beautiful than the finished piece, is the process. I think we have all been trained to focus on sort of that final piece. What was the final score? Who was the winner? What was your grade on the test, right? And I don't think we take enough time to just really appreciate what it took to get us there. And so often, and the way that I've formatted even my grading system has almost nothing to do with that final piece. I mean, I want the final piece to be beautiful to you. I want you to want to look at it. I want you to want to use it or give it as a gift. That's all wonderful. but really it's sort of that appreciation and the dedication for taking a hunk of dirt and like using your hands and very few other tools to just make something else. And in ceramics, it's a slow process. It's a patient process, and it's one that you could do everything right, and yet it could still be a disaster. And so I think there is an appreciation at the end of the day if it does come out the other side. But if it doesn't, I still really focus on what did we learn from it, the fact that they came in, and I just talk a lot about like, did you come in and were you awesome? And did you like give something to this space other than your artwork, which again matters, but it's just about more of a collective sort of us all being together and watching these projects just take shape over sometimes weeks at a time.
I took, and I think the only class I really remember from high school was a modern art history class. And obviously very different. There was a ceramics studio next door to that class. I didn't take that. I took this one I think for the arts requirement. But to this day, that very bizarre teacher, a very quirky guy, taught me how to understand and appreciate art, especially modern art, obviously.
Sure.
What do you do to that end with students? How do you, obviously you teach them process and I don't know what you're doing, but how are you helping them see the process and see the beauty behind things?
I think it's about not coming at it from an intimidating perspective. I think if you look at master artworks every day and all day, there's an element of like, it's hard to bridge that gap, right? Students will be like, well, I'm not, Picasso or whatever. And so I think there's a way that you can break it down and kind of come at it from sort of their level. And I also think it's about consistency. Like it's about every single day commenting and finding things that are happening in the world around you, whether it's a local story or something in your own family or something in your friend group, that if you just tell stories, I feel like I just talk about my family life, my friend life, what happened at the basketball game last night, anything that's sort of a connector that they go, oh yeah, that is special. But unless you're really just talking about special things all the time or beautiful things all the time, I feel like then it feels like a lesson to them. For like, okay, kids, now we're going to talk about something that's beautiful. It's like, okay, that's beautiful. But if it's just sort of more natural, and I think you connect it to their lives, I think it goes a lot farther, and they just start to develop sort of that sense of seeing it themselves. Like, what did you see right here? Look around the room. What did you see at lunchtime yesterday? What are we all looking at? And so I think that does help.
I know you're obviously very talented and skilled, which are two parts of the same coin. What do you do? Because I think I've struggled throughout my life. I had a mom similar to you, extremely crafty and artistic and art major in college, and can kind of create anything, paint anything. And I would look at that. I don't have, like you said about your dad, a skilled hand. I don't have that. So it's taken me, I think, way longer into my adult years to finally say, oh, I am a creative. I create very different things. People probably wouldn't call it art, but I remember one time making a PowerPoint slide presentation. This goes back like 20 years. And I was like, that is what I do. and or create an experience or create a space for people, telling stories like you mentioned. What do you do? And I'm curious the bridge to your own kids as well. I don't know if they have artistic talent. What do you do with students, with kids, to help them see themselves and to not necessarily compare themselves to someone who has the talent that's different than them?
Yeah, well, and as an husband who's an engineer, he thinks his
Yeah.
spreadsheets are not beautiful or creative, and I'm like,
Right.
that's amazing. It's
Totally. Yes.
incredible. So I hear you,
Yeah.
and we have this conversation often about the things that I bring to the table are just visual, right? So
Yeah.
it's easy, I think, for people to just go, "Oh my gosh, you can see it. It's amazing." And maybe the talents that someone who's a little bit more left brain has, like technology
Yeah.
or and that's where my husband comes in, and he's like, he can like
Hmm.
rewire a house and make a spreadsheet, and it's not
Right.
cool looking
Right.
necessarily, or it's mostly not even, you can't even see it often.
You see it. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
But it
I'm
works.
like, that is amazing. So with students, one of my favorite
Hmm.
things to do, so often they'll come to me and they'll just hold out, their project, and they go, "Is this an
Hmm.
A?" And I go, "This is an A." I'm like, "We're not even talking about that yet, And I just
Yeah.
flip it and I just say,
Mm.
"Are you proud of it?" And
Yeah.
once I started to do that, it was kind of awesome to see students,
Hmm.
like you could see it in their face. They are,
Hmm.
even if it's not
Hmm.
like the best thing you've ever seen, they'll
Yeah.
say, I am. Like I'll be like, "Do you love
Yeah.
it?" And they'll be like, "I do." And so
Yeah.
sometimes it's not even me validating it. It's them being asked that question. Like, what
Hmm.
are your thoughts? Right? Because it's
Right.
subjective at the end of the day.
Right.
Like I talk a lot about subjectivity in art and how I
Yeah.
might look at
Yeah.
something and think it's the best thing I've ever seen. And you might look at it and be like, "Meh, it's not for me."
Right. Yeah.
And so I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of both just pouring like compliments and confidence into them,
Hmm.
but not so much
Hmm.
to tell them it's beautiful when it's not, but to have them
Hmm.
answer that question. And I don't
Hmm.
think they get asked that enough, it seems.
Hmm.
Or they're so
Yeah.
worried about the pressure about getting an A, just,
Yeah.
from the community and peer pressure and sort of what they've been trained, that they don't even think, does it look good? They're just worried about the rubric. And you go,
Right.
I don't even care about the rubric. I mean, it's there because whatever,
Yeah.
I have it.
Yeah.
But I'm like, you could, and I do talk a lot about that at the beginning of the class. You could do really well
Hmm.
and make, you know, mediocre projects. And so I
Yeah.
would say that's been a big shift in the last couple years about not only like overemphasizing anything they do. I probably am overboard at times to be like, "You did it! You
Right.
you got a
Right.
handle on it. Like that's amazing. Like
Yep.
you're gonna be
Yep.
able to use it. You're gonna be it's functional now." And that's
Yeah.
probably like, "Oh gosh, here's Misty." Like
Yeah.
so I think it is about pouring into them and just maybe being that only person in that day that saw something they
Mm.
did and acknowledged it and gave them a pat on the
Mm.
back, but then also
Hmm.
encouraging them to decide that for themselves and give them
Mm.
that space
Yeah.
to decide. Sometimes a kid said,
Yeah.
"I love it," and I'll go, "Okay," and I'm like,
Right.
"You
All
love
right.
it, cool."
It's like reminds me of a Seinfeld episode where this couple has a baby and they want to show the baby off, and then Kramer's like, "Well, that's the ugliest baby I've ever seen," but to you,
It's a
it's your
baby.
beautiful baby.
Yeah, I do have
What
in
are
like
you What are you doing with your
go ahead.
What are you doing with your kids, your boys, as it relates to seeing beauty? What are you introducing them to things? Are you like a tour guide to them? Or is there anything that you're doing consciously, or are they just growing up in the craft room, Michael's house, and so there's no chance for them not
I
to?
think it's a little bit of both. I think Jackson's recently gotten really into Photoshop, which is like so
Cool.
exciting. And so we
Yeah.
found some really cool sort of online programming for him to really sort of learn all the tools and everything. And so I think it's supporting anytime they say, oh, I really want to try this. It's finding something where it's just either a little day class or an online class or a community program. But I also think it's really just about pointing it out constantly, like anything in parenting, right? You're constantly encouraging, use your manners, hold the door open, observational skills, I think maybe are lacking definitely at just the younger ages, of course, and just being mindful that there's so much going on around you all at once and that you're not at the center of it, right? There's all kinds of things. And so in restaurants or on travel or out and about, it's a lot of pointing it out, like, look at that. That's amazing. And if there's a cool story about it or history about it, it's talking about it, reading up on it, maybe a podcast about it. So we try to incorporate all those things and just those observational skills that you could easily walk from one place to another and not really see the world around you. So trying to acknowledge it, point it out, ask them questions about it. I think it's just really about building those tools that it just then becomes a natural part of your life that you don't even have to think about.
Yeah. Last question, and I don't mean to, we can edit this out if you don't, if you're like, I'm stumping you. So kind of a Mad Libs, fill in the blank.
Okay.
A life without beauty is
meaningless.
Love it. It's great.
Is that the only one?
Well, thanks for being. That's it.
That's not a Mad Lib. That's a sentence.
Thanks for being a friend. Thanks for being on the show, and thanks for what you're doing with kids. And it's not just inspiring. Sounds like a cliche word, but I like hearing how you think about this because it helps me. You're pointing things out to me, which then means I can point it out to the people I care about the most, which is my kids.
Well, so I'm a big fan of what you're doing. I've got your book for my summer reading, and I think encouraging and teaching just emotional IQ is essential. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, man.
Yeah.
We're taking the mystery out of building a meaningful life with a step-by-step roadmap. In school, you're taught everything under the sun, from algebra to art history to aerodynamics, but you're not taught how to understand yourself or given the tools to make sense of all the questions life throws your way. Without it, most people will take the path of least resistance, hoping it all just works out someday. That's why the U School is here. For over 10 years, we've been specializing in designing transformative curriculum and learning environments to guide people through life's transitions to find, define, and unleash great stories with their lives. You only get one life. You only get one story. Make sure it's the right one.